Now, as the author and commentator Angelica Mallet, Talk TV's Esther Krakow and Fox News contributor Tommy Lowen. So, Tommy Lowen, let me start with you. Two people in Britain today who've been at the forefront of not saying what a woman is. One is Nicola Sturgeon, the ex-First Minister of Scotland, who lost her job because of this ridiculous farce of a rapist self-identifying. She tweeted today, proud on International Women's Day to visit my old University of Glasgow, and banged on about women's rights. This is the woman who just literally lost her job for allowing a male rapist into a female prison. And Sir Keir Starmer, who's leader of the opposition Labour Party here, was talking about protections for women in Parliament today, and yet he refuses to say what a woman is. Where are we with this? How has it come that leaders of parties in countries like the UK, and we see a lot of it in America as well, just won't say what a woman is?
Well, first of all, I have to apologize to you because all of this wokeness originates here in the United States of America, and then we export it to you in the UK.
Yes, you're to blame.
So we started this really in America. Yes, we are. You know, the wokeness starts here, and then it, of course, moves over, and now you guys have to deal with it. The world has to deal with it. But I say this, I'm proud to celebrate International Women's Day because I know what a woman is. So I would say if you don't know what a woman is, you don't get to celebrate it. You don't get to pretend to be a feminist when it's helpful to you or helpful to your political narrative. You have to be able to define what a woman is. This is all a farce. They are seeking to erase women, and this is the radical rainbow mafia, as I call it. This is not your average LGBT activist. This is the rainbow mafia section of that radical LGBTQ movement that has made women less than, and then has elevated all of this transgenderism and all of this pick your gender, identify as potato. They have hijacked the women's rights movement, the feminist movement, and actual feminists should be really pissed off about it.
Well, as a feminist, I am. I recently interviewed Angelica, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and I asked him this question, which seems to stump many other leaders. Here's the clip. What is a woman? We know that Nicola Sturgeon can't answer that. We know Keir Starmer can't answer that. You're the British Prime Minister. What is a woman?
Yeah, of course I know what a woman is. Adult human female.
Wow, so that really surprised me. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak answering the question, no equivocation, no, I'm not really sure what's going on. What is a woman? An adult human female. I mean, folks, do you know how difficult that has been for leaders to say out loud without fear that they're going to get absolutely crushed from the mainstream media and the woke mob and the virtue signalers and all the social justice warriors? I give a lot of credit to Prime Minister Sunak. Anyways, let's hear that one more time. And before we do, just want to let you know you're watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I'm your host, Dr. Nasser, and this is what we have on tap for you today, folks. Piers Morgan discussing International Women's Day, but we're actually discussing men involved in International Women's Day. Folks, that's what happens when you get politics and social media and entertainment and Hollywood and religion and culture, and they all collide. Let's go to more of the interview right now.
What is a woman? We know that Nicola Sturgeon can't answer that. We know Keir Starmer can't answer that. You're the British Prime Minister. What is a woman?
Yeah, of course I know what a woman is. Adult human female.
It's not difficult, is it, Angelica? I mean, that is what a woman is.
I mean, I don't know why you're obsessed with defining it. Like, what is a man? Like, why do we need these arbitrary...
A man is a male, adult human. I mean, that's it.
Right, OK. I don't know that we need
these are just biological facts, but they're just facts. They're not arguable points, are they?
But I think we have a right to self-identify. And you said you want to...
As what?
If you would like to be a woman, you can identify as a woman. I don't know why there is such an issue around...
We've literally just seen a male rapist use that scam to get himself put into a female prison where he could attack vulnerable women inside a female prison, when even his ex-wife said it was all a scam.
Which is a terrible, very distressing, isolated incident. And I think it's easy to take that and say...
It's a terrible, isolated incident. An isolated incident. That's my British accent for the day, folks.
That means that no one can identify as a woman, and
But
that's
it's not an
that's
isolated
fair.
incident, though.
But it's
42% of trans-identifying prisoners in prison are in there for sex crimes. There's actually an advantage, evidently, to identifying as a female, because they never identify as male, because somehow male prisons seem less appealing to them. It's really weird. Anyway, but
Is it limitless, this self-identity?
It's not totally limitless.
What's the
but
limit?
when you're talking about International Women's Day, I don't know.
She's going to get herself in trouble with that wording philosophy. Like I said, she opens her mouth and she instantly loses all credibility.
Why we take the conversation around International Women's Day and make it about this.
But if anyone,
there's so many benefits.
right? But if
to having
anyone,
a day.
according to you, can identify as a woman, anyone can, right?
I don't see a problem with.
Just literally put the hand up and say I'm a woman.
But it's not an easy thing to do, to go out into
Actually,
the
it's
world.
incredibly
It's very easy.
Incredibly easy.
You might think it's easy to say, but to decide to do that, to say
What
this
does
is
doing
who,
it involve?
whatever that person decides, but to
Does
go
it
out
involve
into the
makeup?
world and say I don't identify as perhaps the sex I
So
was
why
born
can't
as.
I
It's not-
identify? Okay, why can't I identify as a black lesbian?
Well, firstly, I mean,
Okay.
I'm serious.
Okay. Did you see the conservative girl there, the black conservative girl? Her reaction? We got to go back and take a look at that one more time, folks. Got to go back and take a look at that, okay? I'm going to play it one more time. Okay, I've taken it back a few seconds to get that reaction in real time. Let's go to it right now.
Why can't I identify as a black lesbian?
Well, firstly, I mean, it was.
I'm serious. I'm serious. If I can identify as anything without any need to prove I'm actually what that is, why can't I on International Women's Day say I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black lesbian?
I think taking it to a kind of absurd
No,
status,
I think
we're
that's
talking
what.
about quite a
With
strong
respect, I think
physical
that.
change.
She just said if you take it to an absurd status, absurd. He just basically said, can I identify as anything? Isn't that what they say? You can be whatever you want. You identify whatever you want. So today I wake up, I'm a black lesbian. Oh no, that's absurd. Why is that absurd? But it's not absurd for just a man to say that he's a white lesbian.
You'd already opened the absurdity door by saying it is limitless. You can do what you like. Anyone can say, I'm a woman. So I simply ask you, why can't I?
I mean, this point kind of ridicules trans people to an extent.
Actually, I think what you said ridicules trans people.
Yes.
Because actually people who go through the full process of transition, who actually go through what we used to call a sex change, which I don't think you can muck around with original biology, but those who actually go through surgical procedure over a number of years, I've got great respect for that very difficult journey they go on. I had zero respect for people who just wallop their hand up and go, suddenly, I'm a woman and I want all the rights that a woman has and I want to compete, say, in sport. I'm a 6'4" athlete, sprinter, swimmer, whatever, who's competed very mediocrely in male sport. I now want to come in and crush women in swimming pools and in sprinting events and break all their records.
If you take a look right now, this lady, just watch her eyes as she's going through. She realizes, okay, she is so out of depth in this conversation that she has no real replies. She's out there in an ocean and no one's throwing a life preserver to her. No one's throwing anything hot for her to cling. And slowly, she is just sinking into the murky depths of this transgenderism BS.
Perhaps irrevocably, just by saying, I'm a woman. I think that is the absurdity you were talking about. My response was to say, well, if it's limitless, why can't I then say whatever I want to say? And you say immediately, as I knew you would, well, that's ridiculous. But my point is, you were being ridiculous.
Well, that's your opinion. You can think I'm ridiculous, but I don't think you can say, well, it has to
I don't know why I am, but you're not.
I don't think you have to say it's post-op is the only way that someone's allowed to identify
Well,
as
the
trans.
original
This is
standard
not for us to
the original
decide.
standard for being transgender was being diagnosed with gender dysphoria, which is a legitimate condition. And now it's being, oh, however way you feel. So if you feel on Tuesday you're a woman and on Thursday you're a pizza, that's perfectly valid. But to you, that's ridiculous. And I want to know why that is ridiculous. We should be talking about actual women on International Women's Day. That's not crazy.
I mean, I agree. I think, but your idea of an actual woman...
The chromosomes, it's pretty
It's an adult female. It's not
The
difficult.
chromosomes are a pretty good indication.
I don't think you have to be biologically female to identify
Then
as a
you are
woman.
wrong, because then I can identify as a fox.
Yeah.
But again, it's
You
a kind of
can.
an absurd point.
How many?
Like,
Well, let me ask you this.
what's
Let me
an
ask you this, Angelica. How many genders are there?
Two.
There are 2 genders.
Oh.
Wow. So you don't believe in transgenders at all?
Well, I think that
Right there, folks. Check and mate for her. Check and mate. How many genders? She had no idea what she was saying. I'm sure she wants to walk that back, but she just basically shot herself right in the foot.
there are
Whoa, hang on. Whoa.
Whoa.
There are 2
Exactly.
genders.
well, it's taught in...
Well, why do you say well? You've literally just launched this huge defence of transgenderism. Now you've eradicated it.
I think
If there are 2 genders, you mean male and female, right?
there's gender fluidity. I will...
Fluid between what?
Between what?
Between different identities, and we can choose different
You
identities.
see how difficult this is, though?
But it is difficult, but I think making...
But it's not difficult until you make it difficult. You see, the BBC has done teaching videos to 11 and 12-year-olds where they say there are 100 genders. One of them was astrogender, which is an affinity with the stars and the galaxy. My response to that on the last show I did was to say, well, in that case, I identify as a 2-spirit penguin. I was then told I was being ridiculous, but I made the same point. The ridiculousness is the BBC teaching kids there are 100 genders. There aren't. It is absurd. Bring back Tommy Lehran, who I imagine is hyperventilating over there in America. Tommy, I mean, look, I don't see why, if it's limitless, I can't just say I'm Piers Morgan, I'm a black lesbian, because that is where limitless self-identity takes us. It means that male rapists can say they're women and get into female prisons. It means I can say I'm a 2-spirit penguin or a black lesbian, and why can't I? Because that is where it takes you.
Well, it certainly does, and I think you just had the perfect argument there. It's impossible to define, and it's impossible to stand up for, because it's a mockery of what actual people are. And furthermore, going back to children, when this happens at a young age, when you start trying to convince kids that they don't know what gender they are, or they're born in the wrong body at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that's child abuse. All right? Gender-affirming care wherein you only tell somebody they can be whatever they want to be regardless of their biology at a young age, that is child abuse. It's
Yes.
happening in the UK, it's happening in the US, and this is making room for groomers to groom young people, to confuse the heck out of them, make them not know what they are so that they can take advantage and exploit them. Now, I want to be very clear here. This is not the mainstream LGBTQ movement. There are a lot of conservatives that even support that movement. This is a radical agenda made by groomers, and they don't want you to call them groomers, which is a perfect example of why they are groomers. This is what we're doing, is to confuse young people, to confuse all people, to make them dumber, make them confused as to what they are. It's a mockery of women's rights. It's a mockery of human rights.
Yeah.
And we should no longer be having the
And
discussion.
you end up with scandals like the Tavistock Clinic here in London, in the UK.
Before Piers continues, just want to say, Tommy hit it right on the freaking proverbial head. Absolutely. When you're talking to this about children, you are grooming them, and this is child abuse. This is, I would label it, basically go one step further, depending upon the pictures that you're using, the terminology that you're using. You are literally taking pornography and you are literally pornizing them. I'm going to coin a word. You're pornizing them. And who's doing it? It is the radical wing of the LGBTQIAMOUSE. Wow, it's not the, I hate to use the word conservative, but let's say it's not the less radical arm of the LGBTQ. It is the radical arm that is basically, I would say it's the KKK of the LGBTQ community. I'll leave it at that.
Where they were basically mutilating children, young, kids, teenagers, mutilating their bodies irrevocably. And then it turned out, after it closed, after a scandalous report came out, that 97% of all the patients had other conditions, from autism to depression to other issues which may have been affecting their ability to think straight about what they wanted to be. And that was, to me, as a father of 4 kids, utterly horrific, just horrific. This was going on, and anyone who tried to raise concerns about this, and journalists did, were immediately branded transphobic. And Esther, this comes back to what we see with, people like J.K. Rowling, I'm no friend of J.K. Rowling. She can't stand me, and I don't like her, right? It's like fire and water. But on this issue, I've not seen a word she said that is transphobic. Yeah. I've just heard her go, I want to support and protect women's rights. For that, she's been unbelievably hounded, abused, attempts to cancel, which fortunately have backfired. But it's all wrong, this, isn't it?
The thing is, and one of the shocking things that she's been attacked for is for drawing attention to domestic violence and violence against women. And that's actually the biggest point here. Other than the fact that, that male rapist was allowed to go into a female prison in Scotland, there's a genuine danger around allowing men into women's spaces, like women's shelters and things like that, and they can be there just by identifying as a woman and then identifying as a tree the next day.
Right, so Angelica, do you understand that part of the argument?
I understand that kind of the argument, but I mean, like Tommy said, I don't think this is confusing for children. I think it's giving you freedom of expression and freedom of choice.
But how many girls did you know? Like my wife was a bit of a tomboy when she was young, right? How many kids do you know, young girls in particular, who are tomboys? But if the wrong person gets hold of them and persuades them, actually, what you should start doing is mutilating your body and have a full attempt to become a boy, that's not what most tomboys end up wanting. They end up actually going through puberty, getting older, and then that's it. They become women. Right? But if you get hold of these impressionable young minds too early, when they're just clowning around being tomboys, that's the danger to me.
I don't think the messaging is as extreme as you think it is, and I think we
Tavistock Clinic was pretty extreme.
I think we.
It's pretty extreme there, honey. Let me mansplain to you that, Lucy, we got some splaining to do. Oh my goodness, Angelica, for you to come on, you're so out of depth. I really feel sorry for you because you're absolutely getting crushed in this interview. And I'm betting you right now, in your mind, you're thinking, oh my God, how long is this going to go on? I have got to get out of this studio. She is counting down the seconds, folks, when she can leave, literally, because this is just an absolute train wreck for her.
Whip ourselves into a frenzy thinking these things, and this language that you mentioned at the start of the show, I don't think you hear that language used that often in like everyday speech.
Which language?
And I think what you were saying.
Oh no, these are on NHS websites. No, this is where you're wrong. This is actually NHS websites in many cases. They genuinely call women chest feeders, birthing partners. They dare not say anything gender specific to women in case some trans people don't like it. To which I say, where are the rights of women to be called what they want to be called? Why does all language have to be degendered for a tiny minority of people?
I think the problem is there's so much fear around having these kind of conversations and saying the wrong thing, getting it wrong. That means that people can't have conversations that feel kind of progressive about what is gender identity, what does the future look like, how do we create a compassionate space. So I think to your question at the start, like what is a woman and why politicians wouldn't answer it, they're so scared of getting it wrong. And
well, people are scared because the mob come for them.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the mob needs to just go away and shut up. Anyway, I think scrap
Absolutely.
International Women's Day until we can all agree what a woman is.
No, I'm sorry. I think there's so many benefits to having International Women's Day. It'd be a real shame to do that.
Well, if you had your way, everyone would celebrate it by identifying as a woman, even if they weren't.
Well, being a woman.
Happy International Women's Day. I am a woman. It's a farce. Anyway, Angelica, lovely to see you. Thank you very much. Esther, going to see you a bit later on. Tommy, always good to have you over at the pond. International Women's Day. There you are. A fine example of a genuine woman. Correct?
So there you have it for International Women's Day. 3 beautiful women, Tommy Lahren, Esther, Angelica. Unfortunately, that's where, in terms of my opinion, the similarities end. Because you had 2 of them, Tommy and Esther, that were just absolutely right on point. And Angelica, dear, I really, really feel sorry for you. Because when you've got to defend a position that's literally circular an argument, and then you start falling into the quicksand, and the more you try to circle out of it, the deeper you sink. That's exactly what was happening right here with you. So I truly feel sorry for you. But regardless, on International Women's Day, Happy Women's Day, I want to be a brown lesbian, a brown lesbian woman celebrating International Women's Day. All right. Take care. Folks, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I've been your host, Dr. Nasser, and as I transform from you, I started out as a man, and then I morphed into a brown lesbian. If you like our content, we'd certainly love to have you subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow us. You know what to do. We won't change on you. I'll give you, and take a look at all of our video links above and below. My final thought, when you're right, you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.